But welcome everyone again to another episode of shOPS Talk, live and in person this time, believe it or not, which is very exciting. We have two phenomenal guests here, but before we get too far down the road, we always like to say thank you, especially to our sponsors that help get this program off the ground and continue to support us, both behind the scenes and on the scenes. So thank you to the Salesforce team, Jen, and the entire Salesforce marketing team for helping us continue to drive this. We do this episode every couple of weeks, usually every 2 weeks, really to drive and continue to elevate our Wizard of Ops community and our users who are all RevOps, Sales Ops, Marketing Ops, all types of wizards elevated in their operations career. So as always, thank you for your continued support. Can't say how much we appreciate it. With that being said, the two folks that we have in the room today, near and dear to my heart for many reasons. I will let them both introduce themselves, and then I promise I will embarrass them profusely for the next 20 or so minutes. But yeah, we have Sam Riggs. I almost got your other last name. Most recently, or very recently married. Sam Riggs joining us, who is running RevOps over at Calendly, and Mark Lail, who's running RevOps over at FullStory, both here in Atlanta. Sam, I'm going to turn the mic over to you and let you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. Yes. So like Brad mentioned, my name is Samantha Riggs, and I am Revenue Operations Specialist at Calendly. And topic today, certifications, very near and dear to my heart. I have 5, working on more always, but yeah, that's what I got right now.
I love it.
Perfect. Yeah. I guess I'll jump in. So Mark Lail, RevOps lead at FullStory. Worked with both these fine people before, and super excited to talk about certifications. I've taken a few, so excited to talk about what that looks like.
Absolutely excited to have you both here.
You gotta
A few.
tell the people.
A few. I think we'll maybe.
We'll just
figure it out.
He's being modest. No, we do have a poll that we'll launch as well as an infographic. I think we'll actually start sharing our screen here in a second to show this infographic. It is really fun thinking about the journey a lot of folks in RevOps go on when it comes to certifications. The entire premise of certifications, before we get too far down the road, is to continue to show the world, your employer, everyone else, your level of sophistication within the greater Salesforce ecosystem, right? So if you look at this lovely infographic that we have pulled up, we'll go through all of our journeys as far as the certifications we have. You can tell my journey is fairly static and staying around 2 certifications.
At least you're still at 2.
At least
hate to be the ones that like goes down.
Oh, yeah.
I've not shared any of my certifications, but it's so interesting watching Mark and Sam's journey through this. The backstory to all this, the 3 of us used to work together, and it wasn't too long ago. So before we get down the journey of how you get these and why you get them and how to prep for them, it's important to know these weren't, this isn't 10 years in the making. This is 4 years in the making. When Sam, Mark, and I all worked together, I was running RevOps over at a company called Gather Technologies. Recently with a merger with Triple C is where they're still going in their career, still active customer of Sonar as well. But it was cool when we all met. Sam was in a finance role. Mark was in an SDR role. And it was so cool working with both of them, even in the short period of time that we all worked together, how we all kind of caught the Salesforce bug together. I remember having so many conversations with Sam as she's transitioning a little bit out of some of the finance roles and finance-oriented mindset to, all right, how do I get this Salesforce thing that gives me headaches from a finance perspective when I'm running payroll and I'm running commissions and all these different things, billing customers. I gotta get better at this. Same thing with Mark. Mark was just pretty candid with mine. He's like, hey, I see what you're doing over there with all this like Salesforce stuff. Can I do that? Can I get an admin license? And I was like, absolutely not. You cannot have an admin license as an SDR, but here's a sandbox. I'll spin that up for you. It's risk-free. You can go and do it. And again, you look at this graphic that we just showed a second ago. This is not 10 years ago. This was not 6 years. This is 3 or 4 years ago. And it just goes to show you put your head down. You find something that you truly enjoy within the Salesforce ecosystem and becoming a practitioner of it. The fruits of your labors pay off. You're obviously running RevOps teams now to very successful, shall we say, unicorn companies here in Atlanta. So congrats to both of you, obviously, for the success you've seen. But the fun part is, how do we get there? So we'll go through a couple different points as far as like why we think about certifications, what we're supposed to do. Obviously, for everybody here that has signed up for it, you know that we'll be giving away, WizOps will actually be paying for one of you to get certified. So we'll announce that winner at the end. But to start off, when you decide to pursue this, Sam, we're going to start with you. What does that process look like? do you read a book? Do you go to a website? When you think about how do I start this journey, what was going through your head to decide to go do this?
Yeah, well, you teed me up well because like you said, I was in finance, I was using Salesforce just as an end user for a while, looking up accounts, looking up opportunities, trying to figure out why these people haven't paid us, all this stuff. So I knew some, but I didn't know anything about admin. And then you and I were on the same team, and I kind of was like looking over your shoulder one day, you're like doing a process builder, and I was like, what is that? That looks fun. I like logic, things like that. So like, just basically looked over your shoulder and kind of caught a bug for it. So then after that, like you left to pursue another opportunity. I raised my hand, I was like, I want to do that too. So like, I was doing light admin work at the beginning, creating fields, validation rules, things like that. And the like natural next step to make it official was to get the cert. So yeah, I just kind of pulled up the internet. I had hands-on experience, doing some of that stuff. So that helped get me on the right track. But some of the stuff you're not really going to ever encounter in your day-to-day that is on the exam. Like some of it's, a little bit esoteric. So yeah, you do get into the like holes of the internet, just trying to figure out, how to memorize all these permission sets and things like that. So yeah, it's a lot of internet research. And yeah, I'm sure go over some like tips and stuff like that later on, but just generally, yeah, dove right in, got some hands-on experience right from the beginning, which I think helped a lot just to like cement it in my mind. And yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's so organic too. You're like, no, I'm already doing this. I need to level up. I need to actually go get educated on this. And again, it's a great way to prove your value to your company, to your current employer, to future employers, etc.
Yeah, I mean, mine was very different, like not having put my hands on it really in any practical sense. And just like coming from a place where I was thinking about these problems in a very different way. And I remember one of the process builders you built, it was like, hey, I think you're missing this like logic in there because like this keeps on happening, and you're like, oh, thanks for that catch. And so that's kind of how it started, right? Like being able to tinker and play with it, talk to you about it. And then I got a developer org and started, I mean, I'm a big like practical put your hands on it kind of person to learn it. And to Sam's point, there's a lot of stuff on there that's like, okay, well, like, do you ever think you're going to use this? And I think like, yeah, like some of it you'll realize like most places never use it, but you'll be at a place where you need to have it and you're like, I am so glad I learned what this is. So I just started putting my hands on it. I was doing a lot of like, there's some really great courses out there that I started using too. And like I used a lot of the kind of focus on force stuff. There's Salesforce 99. Like there's a whole bunch of things that you can go do to kind of get the practical knowledge. But then I was really big about, I need to see that in real life because like I'm a big person that's like, if I don't conceptually put this in practice, it never commits to my memory.
Yeah, it is. I think we all know this, both as just practitioners of administrating Salesforce, with or without certifications. You learn so much hands-on. Like roll your sleeves up, go fix it, go break it. I think one of the coolest things, and we see this in WizOps all day, we see this with all of our mutual friends and customers and everything. We're all at the point where we're humble enough to be like, you know what, I broke this and I'm going to go fix it. And if you're not used to kind of getting that scar tissue and then stubbing your toe along the way, it could be a tough journey, but you show a little bit of humility. By the way, the one thing that neither one of them threw me under the bus on was the fact that they inherited my Salesforce dumpster fire after I left Gather. And so I appreciate you.
Sam much more than I did.
Sam did. But it does just go to show you that's also how you get your repetitions, get your at-bats, like go fix somebody else's mess. And we all know, we talked about the career progression that we all sit in and what we do. That's a great way to prove your worth. Like everybody has a little bit of Salesforce trouble. Like nobody's gonna be coy about that. But the more you can prove value to your company, the more that you get to go fix some of those fires, the more credibility.
I mean, like someone in sales, like that was the only way I felt like I would get a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Reality. That's it. So we think about, all right, we know sort of where we start and where we start doing some of this research. We got to roll our sleeves up. We got to open some books. We got to take some tests. When you think of like the study tips, what process did you go through? I mean, we all went to different universities and we all have different backgrounds as far as education. Side note, we'll drop this in the chat here in a second. But we'll also, we put together a nice little case study or at least a blog post about some of our favorite places. You mentioned a few of them already, of places to go study. Obviously, one of the biggest ones is one of our partners across the pond, Ben McCarthy with Salesforce Ben. puts out phenomenal content, tests, practice tests, everything like that. But Mark, we'll start with you. When you really started to roll your sleeves up and start studying and testing and figuring out what you're doing, what were you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was on like kind of the whole practical putting my hands on it. I did some courses to learn the foundational stuff, like sharing rules, but then I really went to Trailhead a lot. And like the one knock on Trailhead is like it's kind of sometimes elementary, but it does make you do the stuff, put your hands on it. And I think when you think about it, the certification is one point, but doing it in real life is the part that you're trying to validate. And if you've never actually done it, then you get in a job, like people are going to find out very quickly that certification didn't mean anything. So make sure the certification means something. And so if you're a really good test taker, you can get by. But if you're a bad test taker, I think that only reinforces the behavior because you have to think about the problem, right? The question they're asking is a real life scenario. Think about the problem. And by doing it, you think, oh, how did I solve this when I went through that scenario that they gave me in that challenge at Trailhead? I think if I had to give one person, advice, what I usually get asked, because I've taken, a lot of these.
10. He's taking modest. He's got 10 of them.
I have 10. So if you do it and you go through Trailhead and then you use the other tools like Focus on Force to understand the very technical aspects of it, because that's the key thing too in some of these is that the very minutia technical aspects can get very difficult. Use their guides to understand, oh wait, this is the small nuance in this scenario that helps you understand, and that only helps you on the application side too. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally agree with all that. So one tip that I have, especially if you're trying to balance working full time and getting the certification, maybe you don't work in Salesforce at all, you're trying to switch gears. They will give you a breakdown of all the topics that are on the test. It'll be like a pie chart and it'll be like, okay, 25% is Sales Cloud, like 10% is permissions and sharing and things like that. I would not just breeze past that. It's obviously boring, but if you're trying to efficiently study that stuff first. Just don't spend, 30% of your time working on like Service Cloud when it's 5% of the test. So definitely pay attention to that stuff. And then I really get a lot of value out of practice tests. Like I could study and do all that stuff, but for some reason, like getting it to that extra, like, okay, now I know it, but I need to like practically be able to answer a question about it. So Focus on Force, huge fan. So yeah, they'll give you like 5 practice tests and I just, go through them, do them again and again until you get everything right and understand, of course, why you're getting it right. Yeah, those are my tips.
Well, so pop quiz for both of y'all. Scale of 1 to 10, are you a good test taker?
Yeah, 1 to 10, yeah, like 8, I guess.
Yeah. Like a 10. I was just always like the guy who's finishing first.
-3. And if it goes further than -3, I'm gonna go like -17, perhaps. I'm an awful test taker. And if I can give any bit of advice from my journey of it, and this was my old transition from Cloud shOPS, which is a big consulting shop, ended up getting acquired by Accenture, moving into Coastal Cloud where I got my 2 certifications. Don't be naive to think that just because you are a practitioner, you go take a test.
Yeah.
First time I took my admin test,
Absolutely.
failed miserably. They don't think they tell you, at least back in the day, like I'm old, but they don't tell you what your fail was or how far away, just pass fail or not. I remember I didn't study at all. I was like, I'm already a Salesforce admin. I've been doing it for 3 years. Like I know all this stuff, and failed miserably. Studied again. I was like, no, all right, I'll take a practice test or 2. Failed the second time and finally got my admin, like my base level admin cert on my 3rd. Kind of the same thing with Sales Cloud. I was like, well, now I'm a consultant. I've got 1 cert. I'll just do it again. I didn't study enough, and there's so many good assets and resources out there. Like take advantage of them. It is tough. You have to be very pointed and deliberate about studying for these things. If you're working 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours a day, the best way is for it to stay top of mind. Get an hour in 3 days a week, and just stay in that motion. We have a couple of our AEs, like early when we were starting Sonar, some of our AEs were going to get their certification so they could speak more eloquently to the platform. And I feel like Tyler's like, took it, failed it. I was like, dude, stay on it. Like, don't get deterred. Like, don't get diminished on this. Like, just put your head back down, go study again. And sure enough, he gets it on the next try. And so for anybody out there that's taking these tests, failure is awesome. I learn more from my mistakes than I do my successes. I think a lot of people will agree with that. Don't be afraid of failing. Just get back up and keep going. So
one thing I forgot to mention that I think when someone's trying to take the first admin one is Salesforce does those admin days or certification days, they call them or whatever. where they can do like 8 hours. You can do those. The also pro tip is that they give you a coupon code for like half off if you're having to pay for it yourself. It's a great time to get for free an 8-hour training from Salesforce and not have to pay as much for the certification.
Yeah, pro tip, especially if you're not going to win the free one. That
If you don't have Daddy Warbucks right here paying for your certification, you can somewhere.
Hey, pay it forward. Test day 101, Sam. I know when we were kind of prepping for this a little bit, like you remember, like I had this aha moment of more of like kind of fear. Like, what do you expect when you go into the actual testing?
Yeah. So I know COVID, it's a little different. I think they're allowing people to do it, like from a Zoom. But when I was taking out mine, it was in person in like a testing facility. Very weird, very scary, very sterile. You're right. So anyways, you walk in, you sit in your little booth, you put your little headphones on, and all of a sudden I was like, I have never taken a test on a computer before. Every test I've ever taken for school was always, I had paper in front of me and Scantron or like, a test booklet, something like that. So all of a sudden I was like, oh no, because like one of the things that I like to do that really helps me center my thoughts, especially when a question is stumping me, is to scratch off the ones I know are wrong, just to like, focus. So one thing I started doing is they do give you scratch paper. So I just wrote down A, B, C, D, E, and then started scratching off the ones that I knew were wrong and just went like that. My whole scratch paper was filled with A, B, C, D, E, and just like scratches on it. But it helps me. It helps me like, just focus.
Yeah. Well, and I want to get your thought on this too, like test day 101. But like I remember when I was taking mine, and in the admin cert specifically, it's broad. It's purposely broad. The other ones, and we'll get into. I saw your question, Khalil. We'll answer it in a second. The other tests are more focused on specifically like Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud. But the admin one's purposely broad, and it's kind of tough. There's so much to cover. And I remember somebody told me this. I can't remember who it was. I owe somebody a shout out. They're like, whatever your biggest weakness is, the minute you get into that testing facility and they let you use that pen and paper, just remember, like if you're a visual person, remember it. Like, it's like a flow chart of something. If it's the circles that talk about like the way profiles and permissions and everything escalate, like recreate that just for your own thing. It's not cheating. It's literally just like you put in your own thoughts on a piece of paper, so you can go back to it, which I thought was a really unique idea. How about you? All of my tests in college and everywhere else was Scantrons and paper. Like I'm not used to clicking on things. It's definitely a learning curve. So be ready for that. Any test day 101s? You did most of yours live.
Yeah, I did them all live and proctored. I think the key point is you're either going to go through the test really fast, or it's going to go through you really fast. Like you're going to look up and not have enough time, or you're going to get done really early. But know that you can go through it and then go back through it again and then go back through it again. I think when you get in there and you start answering questions and realize there's no back button, you start freaking out. But you can go through it again. So go through it like a normal test. You can come back to the answers after you get done with all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So this next question is a little bit post-test. Obviously, like these certifications are great, but one of the biggest questions I get asked often, I'm sure y'all as well, like, what are you supposed to do with this afterwards? It's great. You get to add it on LinkedIn. You put your badges and your profile picture, and it's perfect. How do you go about moving yourself forward and leveraging this in your career? Because yes, it's great to have a piece of paper that says it. Mine's sitting on my fridge with a magnet on it, right? But like, what are you supposed to do with it? Sam, obviously you have moved in your career a lot to leverage your successful certifications. How do you think about using that to your advantage during interviewing and talking to your current employers about career advancement?
Yeah, I mean, I think too, the more you get, more of these certifications you get to, like you were saying, they do get a little more specialized. So it does help when you're in an interview to be like, oh, I see you have Salesforce CPQ, like I'm certified in that. It does help, if you can be strategic about it. If you have like a dream company you'd love to work for, and happen to know how what softwares they use, get an inside tip or something. Definitely like try and focus your studying in that way, and become like a resource that they need that's a little bit more specialized. But yeah, I think just everybody likes to see certifications. Like some people might be like, oh, it's just a piece of paper, like who cares? But like it or not, it's just the way like college degrees are sometimes, like that doesn't mean everything. Of course, everybody knows that, but then when it comes down to it, a lot of employers still are looking for them. So it's, it's really valuable just to have it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think like kind of what I was saying earlier about like I like to put my hands on it. It's like you're building a lot of stuff while doing this learning. You're trying to figure out these things. So take some of that stuff and build some cool things. Or like if you're at a job today and you're maybe not in a functional role using this, like can you build stuff that's solving problems that you're experiencing at work? And then you create this kind of portfolio. You create a way to show, hey, I not only do I have a piece of paper, but look at this stuff I built. I mean, so many places are giving you a take-home test to do, and then you're having to do that. Well, why not also have supplemental stuff to submit to that you own, that you created, that's all by you, not you inherited it or you're fixing it every day, but you're creating net new valuable things that you can bring to their company as well. And I think like that is always, nobody likes taking tests. And this is a gate into this ecosystem for a lot of people. And the problem is in 2020, I mean, some people have said, I want to take this test. And so you have a lot of people now have this new certification. So you got to set yourself apart now too. And so that's one way to do it. And to Sam's point, the way we all know the way people get recruited for jobs is a lot of keyword search. So the more of these specialized certifications you get, you're going to pop up in more of these results when maybe you're not the one actively pursuing it, they're pursuing you now.
Yeah. For anybody that is thinking about taking their test or getting their certification or has already gotten theirs, congratulations. I'm sure your LinkedIn inbox looks very similar to some of ours, because again, it is a means of recruiting for a lot of companies. And we see a lot of these bigger firms, like Mason Frank is a big Salesforce recruiting shop, and they leverage this. It is one of the few objective ways to measure someone in this ecosystem's worth. That also extends out into the consulting world. And I was looking through some of the attendees already on here. We have a lot of consultants that join this, and they're part of the WizOps community. As a consulting firm, this is one of those things, how you level yourself up and how you go from silver to gold, I think gold to platinum, and all the levels. That's one of the measuring sticks that Salesforce actually measures you as a consulting firm on. How many of your consultants have certifications and advanced certifications? So sadly, the admin cert doesn't count as an advanced certification. And so, it's a great way not only to look at yourself in the mirror and look how you appear to the audience out there who's evaluating you for the next career opportunity, but be sure also, if you're in a sales ops and rev ops role, you're working with consultants, ask them for what certifications they have. Again, it's not a binary sense. It's like, yeah, cool, you have a college degree. It's the same thing. Like, yes, you're trainable, you can go take tests, but it is a good indicator in this system, in this ecosystem, if you kind of hold your weight in water, I guess, if you will. So we did have a question come in, and Khalil, thank you for asking. And for everybody on, obviously ask questions. We've got a few more minutes, we've got a few more questions as well, but please, any questions that you have for Mark, myself, Sam, please ask. But Khalil, what are your completed certifications in? We put the numbers up there, but I think folks are curious, what all do we have?
Man.
And the second part of that is,
Can you remember?
I don't remember. What are all the most, and what are the most sought after certs for tomorrow's problems?
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting part, but
Yeah.
I'll start with you. Can you get all 10 of yours right now?
All right. Admin, advanced admin, sales cloud, service cloud, sharing visibility, platform developer 1, application architect. I'm missing 2. That tells you app builder.
App builder,
Yeah.
And there's one more that I am coming to blank on.
I'll pull your, it's in your banner of your LinkedIn.
Yeah,
So
that
we
tells
can,
you that's a
we can pull
problem.
that up.
Yeah.
In a second.
Yeah, Sam.
Mark almost got there.
So I've got admin, advanced admin, platform app builder, sales cloud, and CPQ.
CPQ. That's
Don't have
cool.
CPQ.
and
Don't like CPQ.
Oh, but you have CPQ.
I do.
FullStory,
Yeah.
I know that. So that's so good. This was easy for me. Admin and sales cloud. That was you have to see that continue to rock. We're gonna move into a little bit of rapid fire. Again, for the folks that are still on the call, please jump on. I promise after some.
Well, let's answer his question about the certification for tomorrow.
Oh yeah, certification tomorrow. What do you think? Where's this going? We know what the ecosystem looks like.
So I think if I had 2, CPQ is one of them,
Mhm.
and the new JavaScript one they've created, I think is going to be a big one, because like all Lightning is kind of classic web development that you see a lot of these classic developers now coming into the ecosystem, and they're kind of trying to morph like they need to learn Salesforce, and so part of that is applying to that as well.
Interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with the CPQ one. I'm seeing a lot of people moving to Service Cloud too,
Yeah.
more than I would expect, to be honest. But I think everybody likes the idea of everything just being in one, all in one, all of their like end users in one platform, and having like a full 360 view of their customer. So I keep seeing that one come up.
I think the number of certifications out there now is wild to me, because even when I was starting this journey in my own, I think 5. It was just the main clouds that you essentially had.
Yeah.
30 now.
Yeah. And of course, you have the big one, pie in the sky for everybody, the CTA,
my
which actually
gosh,
one of
yeah.
my best friends, CTA, is like my next door neighbor, and that was not by design, it's just very
That's
coincidental and
crazy.
serendipitous. But he'll tell you this, that like these are so important, but that CTA, like to be a certified technical architect is a different type. It's not an online proctored 60 question, I hate to tell you. It is very much practical.
It's also very expensive.
It's extremely expensive. But Cliff is a very brilliant guy. So he's also very expensive. I can tell you that. But you're right. I think to answer that question, like the one for tomorrow, and I don't know if this is actually in existence yet, but I'm sure it will get there if it's not already. You look at some of the way Salesforce is acting in some of their acquisitions, especially on the BI side or the Tableau side, the data side, to see, I don't know, we used to have a Einstein certification, which I don't think they still have.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Been
But
rebranded.
yeah, it's been rebranded, but I do feel like there's a future in kind of the big data side and the data analytics side. So I'm not going to be surprised when that one comes out or a new version of it comes out and it becomes the next hot thing. You look at all the data providers, not to go too far down a rabbit hole, but you look at all the ways data is going into data lakes and all the different things with like census and segment, and everybody else. And so I can very much see how data is going to be very focused on as opposed to just some of process and building and writing, things like that. So yeah, great question. Vinny, I'm going to read yours in a second, but I'm going to start go through some rapid fire just so we come through it. Some of these are part of the Salesforce world, some of them aren't, but this is also just kind of fun questions to ask. And I put you on the spot first. What's your favorite thing on TV right now?
Can I do a book?
Sure. You're smarter than me. You read more than I watch TV.
Tools of the Titan by Tim Ferriss.
Tim's great. His podcast is
Basically
great.
boiling down why really successful people, like what are the commonalities of the things they do.
Interesting. Very cool. I like that.
Well, I'm currently rewatching Downton Abbey, which is not, in fact, educational.
No,
No, maybe it is a little bit. I'm learning about life
historical.
in that time. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm doing right now.
I love it. I'm gonna throw it back to some of the previous folks we've had on the show where we talked so much about Below Deck.
Oh my
Such
God,
a
don't
good-
even get me
guilty
started. I
pleasure.
love Below Deck so much.
I love it. You kind of answered this, but I'm gonna ask as well. Favorite podcast?
Favorite podcast actually is
Ferris.
it's a podcast called Startup, which is no more new
I know
episodes, but
Startup, that was
but you
good.
hear the entire
Yeah.
thing from the starting of this content delivery company to the moment they got bought by Spotify. You hear the founder's thoughts of it. You record self-recorded. It's great.
Yeah, that one is fantastic. I listen to a lot of Armchair Expert.
It's good.
Love that one.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I listen to lots of podcasts, but that one's probably my favorite right now.
I love it. All right. One of the last questions, because I know we're getting close to the top of time. It's always one of my favorite parts. You're on your RevOps journey. We know that. If you were to rewind the clock, and Sam, I'm going to start with you first. If you were to rewind the clock and you were to look at yourself in the mirror and give yourself advice, because again, I'm going to look at you, so I'm putting it up, but there's a lot of folks out here that are just starting their journey. What advice would you give them as they start and as they really excel somewhat into certifications, but overall, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I have one specific to the starts. And that would be, you don't have to get 100 to pass. I feel like I stressed out so much about knowing the answer to every single question and was stressing myself out during the test. I think you only have to get like a 65, which like obviously you should do as well as you can, but at the same time, you don't have to know the answer to everything. And that honestly carries through in a RevOps career. Like how many times a day I say, I don't know. I mean, if I had $1 for every time, I'd be very rich. So it really, you're going to learn all the time. You don't need to know everything right now. And also people are going to do things differently from you and you're going to learn from them. And that's great. That's like part of what makes this job so fun.
Yes, learning every day. I got to ask you the same thing. Rewind the clock, fire up the DeLorean.
It's very similar.
What advice?
Mine was like take more chances. And that is around like be comfortable, like stretching yourself out the things you think you don't know, taking the test when you feel like you're not quite ready yet, and pushing yourself. And then also too in a career, like there's moments where like you don't know if you can solve it, but yet you go find that thing that like there's parts of my career that like I feel like I've developed because I took a chance trying to solve a problem and had to go figure out how to solve it.
I love it. I don't know if y'all could hear the woohoo in the background. Somebody just did something fun and we're woohooing, probably banging a gong at some point. I love that. I think the best advice are both of those pieces. And again, saying I don't know is one of the biggest skills that I look at for people as we hire more here at Sonar, we bring people on, and even just in a greater ecosystem, having a sense of humility, being like, I don't know, like go stub your toe, like go learn. The way you learn the best is by breaking things. Dan Grossberg, I'm not sure if Dan's still on or not, but I make and I break things. I fix and I break things. So thank you all for joining. I know we're at the top of time. I promised a winner for this, who we're going to pay for their next certification. So This was a random number pulling of the hat thing. Jared Thompson, congratulations. Also just started as a new job as Salesforce Admin at Apollo. So congrats on the new job. And now congrats on getting your next certification. We're gonna reach out and make sure we pick up the cost for that for you. So
The $200 or $400 ones?
pick your poison. I guess it's gonna go the 200.
200.
Look,
Got it.
there's no asterisk on the side of that. Like you pick your,
Just want to make sure I clarified that.
not the
On public
CTA.
sphere.
Yeah, not the CTA. That was not one that we'll pick up. But no, yes, absolutely. We're excited, Jared, to help you continue in your career. Obviously, we're big fans of what you and Henry and everyone are doing over at Apollo. So I know we're at the top of time. If y'all are hanging out 1 second, we still have a couple folks still hanging in. I'm going to answer Vinny's question. I want y'all to answer it. This is actually a good one. When you think of, he's like, what is the biggest reason for me to get a certification? I've been working as a Salesforce administrator for 10 plus years at this point, but never did the cert. Why do I think about it? This is a good one. And also, Vinny's my guy, so I love Vinny. But what do you think? Put you on the spot. Think about it.
I mean, I think like a lot of it is around kind of like, so the problem with that first cert is it's such a gate to everything else, right? If you want to go to anything else, like in terms of like developing or trying to get a piece of paper that says you can, do something else, because yeah, you've done it for 10 years, but I think that there's like a certain level of like gating that happens in jobs and happens in other certifications, obviously, that you want to kind of build upon. I think it helps kind of unlock that for you, and you don't have to explain that away, right? You don't ever have to talk about why did you never get certified, because that will likely come up in a conversation with somebody who values these, right? You're going to shrink the pool of people you can work for because there are certain people who value these as especially people who are not in the ecosystem, like people who are hiring for roles who have not done Salesforce themselves, see this as a gate to hiring a Salesforce admin.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
What do you think?
yeah, similar. I think, yeah, like a recruiter who doesn't know anything about Salesforce might just, be like, oh, well, we wanted someone certified, as silly as that is for somebody who's been working for 10 years. I would say too, like, just ask yourself, is there anything that you're like not working with now, like, or that you haven't worked with in the past 10 years? Although that's a long time, I'm sure you've seen every part of Salesforce there is. Is there anything that you like would be interested in learning about? So like CPQ, for example, you do have to have that one, the original admin to get all these other ones. So if there's something out there that you're like, I want to do that, I want to learn more about it, and I want to like get a piece of paper that says I can do it, then maybe that's why you do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. It is a prereq. You
Mhm.
can't get all the other advanced certifications without the admin cert. And to a certain degree, there's a level of expertise that comes along with rolling our sleeves up and walking the walk, especially for 10 plus years of doing it.
Yeah.
That story needs to be heard. And I guess my only bit of advice is, and obviously, you guys are killing it, scale matters, and I know you're not going anywhere by any means anytime soon, but to a point of furthering advanced careers, you want to be able to afford the opportunity to tell that story.
What conversations are you missing?
What conversations could you be missing? Yeah, I know you're obviously not looking by any means right now, but when you think about, the long career progression, would you be thought of differently just again on pen and paper? Sadly, there's a stigma to it to a certain degree that says, I'm a Fortune 500 company. We're looking for a badass Salesforce person. Like, I'm going to go run my search, and I'm going to go ahead and pick the lowest common denominator that they need to be admin certified. So that'll be like a little bit of my thought. But again, everybody's career is different. I think that's why everybody needs to have that conversation. But I think sometimes it is a prereq to even afford yourself to have that conversation. So I think the coolest thing, and I'll leave everybody with this, I genuinely think we're at the starting point of certifications, which sounds weird, but hear me out. I think Salesforce, obviously, you've seen they've had probably 10x new certifications in the last 5 years. You're now seeing SalesLoft have certification, HubSpot have certifications. You're seeing Marketo, just insert logo and name here. And I think the way that you really have to rationalize this. I was having this conversation with Kyle Porter, the CEO of SalesLoft, the other day. It's like, you rewind the clock for you, Kyle, when y'all started SalesLoft, how complex was it? He's like, he made the analogy, it's like a 4-function calculator. We had like a good couple things, Rob put it all together. You zoom forward to what SalesLoft is doing now, and Outreach is doing now, and Gainsight, Gong, Chorus, congrats on the acquisition with ZoomInfo. These pieces of technology are becoming increasingly complex, and we as administrators have to administer them. And so just don't be surprised when you start to see almost every logo out there now having their own certification program, because it truly is a tough piece of technology and software to manage, and you have to have your wits about you. So I love the certification process through all these other different platforms. Again, it brings credibility, it establishes you as an operations professional, as a wizard of what you're doing. And hopefully it continues to bring you good fortune in your career. So
I will say one thing, that just like, don't feel the pressure to have to get those things though. Because I think that's the one thing that people will put a lot of time and energy into this stuff, and like know where you're building your career and be really mindful about what certifications you're getting, because it will become the stigma that you carry with you.
it is. So be intentional about it.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go get them, be intentional, be planning on using them. Don't get me wrong, you can go get degree after degree, cert after cert, but just be ready to be a practitioner of these things as well. So
Exactly.
I know we kept everybody over. I told y'all, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah,
You're like, God,
right.
30 minutes can take forever. We're already like 6 minutes over. Thank you everyone for joining and hanging around, especially a little bit longer with us. Jared, congrats. We'll follow up with you and get you taken care of with that certification. We're gonna be back in a couple weeks. It's gonna be August actually, and we will have more fun shOPS talks ahead of us. So thank you again for everybody joining. Have a great rest of your day and talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.